Welcome to Especially for Nutritionists and Herbalists. This is an iridology introduction. We're specifically looking at hepatic markers, also known as liver markers. We're going to be very laser focused today. We're only going to look at liver issues. We're not going to look at gallbladder. That's a side trip that we're just not going to take today. So regardless of whether your specialty is nutrition or herbology or some other holistic practice, I know you will leave our session today with information you can use with your clients right away. One of the things I've learned over my years in the holistic wellness industry is that excellent healers keep learning. They know they don't know it all, and so I want to congratulate you for being in that small minority who continue to learn and who are always striving to be your very best so you can give your clients the very most you've got. I'm excited to have you with me today. You're going to want to take really good notes, and because what I'm going to teach you is going to change how you work with your clients when you use what I teach you. It's only going to be of value if you actually start using it. So take really, really good notes and do start using it. You're going to want to stay right till the very end because I've got things for you right till the very last slide. So what are some of the symptoms that the liver is struggling? Well, chances are you're going to see things like low energy, which means the muscles fatigue easily due to poor glycogen storage. Your liver is responsible for taking the blood sugars, creating glycogen, and then storing that glycogen in the liver primarily and in your muscles also. And if the glycogen doesn't get used, then the liver converts it to fat. Sometimes we see really low energy in people, and it's because their glycogen conversion is not happening well. Nausea after consuming fatty foods. Now this is a tricky one. We're going to talk about it more in a few minutes. But if people are eating fatty foods and feeling nauseous, that might be a good indication for them. Pale colored bowel movements. The brown color of your bowel movements is a combination of foods you've eaten, and we've all seen our bowel movements change color if we eat a lot of one food and not so much of another. Beets are a prime indicator. But if the bowel movements are pale colored for a few days in a row, we want to be asking questions about bile production. You might see anemia, and that could be, of course, your low hemoglobin and or iron stores in spite of adequate iron intake. We might see unhealthy changes in the high-density lipoproteins and the low-density lipoproteins, or your cholesterols, and your triglycerides. Now, HDL and LDL are proteins that carry cholesterol to and from cells, and triglycerides are one way of storing calories for future use. But they need to stay in a healthy balance or we run into trouble. Sometimes we'll see the liver struggling by seeing a poor immune defense. So these are the people who are always ill, they catch everything that blows past, and that's an indication that the liver is not doing all of its jobs. One of its jobs is immune. One of its jobs is very specifically immune. With women, we might see PMS with breast tenderness, fluid retention, moods that last for 1 to 7 days before her period starts. And we might also see acne, whiteheads, blackheads, and pus-filled cysts under the skin. We might see yellowish skin or a yellowish tinge to the whites of the eyes. This is known as jaundice, and it's a sure sign that the liver isn't up to par, because the jaundice happens because the bilirubin is elevated and it's not being properly taken care of. Sometimes we'll see a metallic or bitter taste in the mouth when eating, so most of the food tastes off, and it's like, oh my goodness, I've had this food like 500 times in my life already, but now it tastes disgusting. What's up with this? That is what we're talking about here. And itchy skin. Now this usually happens if the person is severely jaundiced and has liver disease. So it's not a really common one, and when you see it, the person probably needs to be under medical attention as well as under holistic care. So chances are when your clients come in to see you, you ask them what they'd like their help with, and they may give you a lengthy shopping list of symptoms With your training, you start sorting through that information that they've given you. And maybe you even have them fill out a lengthy intake questionnaire, but maybe not. I personally don't use a questionnaire. I'd rather talk to my client. If they give you a couple of things off this list, then you're going to want to be wondering what their liver's doing. If they give you this last one and they're jaundiced, you really know what their liver's doing. But if they give you one of these first ones, you'll want to start asking about liver. And if they give you 2 or 3 or 4 of them, you really want to be asking those questions all about liver. You already know that the liver does over 500 different jobs, and these jobs fall into 3 main categories. The first one is its clearinghouse job. That means that everything you eat, drink, breathe, ingest, absorb in any way, if it gets into your body and into your blood, it's going to go to the liver. The liver sifts and sorts. It decides if something is appropriate to keep or should be gotten rid of immediately. And then it needs to do a second evaluation. It looks at things that it's decided to keep and decides, are they good the way they are? Can we use them like this? Or do we need to change them a little bit? Do we need to modify them? It also decides if it's something that has to be used right away, like a B vitamin, or is it something that it can save to store and use at a later time? And if it's another job is that your liver creates proteins. This is really important because all of the proteins that you need to repair something in your body, your liver had to make. And you can't eat those proteins in the right form because we just can't use them that way. We cannot take a chicken protein and rub it on your skin to heal a cut. Your body can't use it. Your body has to take the proteins in. It needs to take them through the chewing process to break them down mechanically. Then it sends them to the stomach where they get broken down chemically. Then they get sent into the small intestines where the chemical breakdown, which are the amino acids, get absorbed into the bloodstream. And then from there, those amino acids go to the liver. And the liver has its list of work orders that says, she cut her toe, he has a bad scrape on his knee, he's got an ulcer forming in his stomach, and the liver looks at those work orders and knows what proteins are needed. It takes this barrage, this array of amino acids, and it reconfigures them to be the protein that's needed for the toe, or the protein that's needed for the scrape, or the protein that's needed to heal that stomach ulcer. The third job that the liver does is detoxification. Now, this is the one everyone loves to talk about, right? This is the sexy liver topic. The other ones are not sexy. This is sexy. Nutritionists and herbalists always are talking about liver detox. And while it's totally necessary to keep the liver clean, I think we have a problem in North America in that we are cleanse happy. Everyone wants to do cleanse, 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 and nobody seems to spend time on the building part of it. As I like to say, you can over cleanse. Some of you may be old enough to remember the days when we had linoleum floors that needed to be waxed. You'd wax them and you'd polish them. And after a number of layers of polishing, you would need to strip the wax. Cleansing is like stripping the wax off that old linoleum floor, but you only stripped it down to the linoleum. You didn't keep scrubbing to go through the linoleum. Right? When you had all the wax off, then you would start reapplying wax, and you would reapply wax for maybe 6 months when the floor needed it. But when the wax buildup got too thick in certain areas of the floor, then you would strip the wax again. That's what we need to do with cleansing. We need to cleanse periodically, but not exclusively. And we need to take long periods of time where we build and support. And truthfully, if we are doing this right, the building and supporting strengthens the liver to the point where it can cleanse itself on an ongoing basis and will rarely need a specific cleanse. one of the challenges I have with liver cleanses is that so many people will come in and they'll say, I want to do a cleanse. And whether it's a liver cleanse or a bowel cleanse or a general detox, they come in and they say, I want to do a cleanse. And they'll do this 10-day really intense thing where they're eating very specific foods and taking very specific supplements, and they're making great progress. But they're doing it almost as a penance for the quote-unquote riotous life they've lived for the last 6 months or a year. And they're going to go back to that riotous life after they finish the cleanse. And I'm being a little facetious when I say riotous life. But they tend to address cleansing as if it is a way to excuse their poor behaviors and a way to allow them to go back to their poor behaviors. And that's just not really the right thing to do. So we really want to encourage them to detox appropriately, but not constantly. And we want them to be building as well. When you know that the liver does these 3 jobs, and knowing how to assess which functions might not be working correctly, it might actually, I'm sorry, let me redo that. When you know that the liver does these jobs, but when you don't know how to assess which of these 3 jobs might not be working correctly, it might pose you with some challenges in your clinic that you might need a little bit of help with. And those challenges could look like this. It might be that you know that there's a liver issue, but you don't know what the liver issue is, so you don't know where to start with your recommendations, and that means you don't know how to set your therapeutic priorities and sequences. Now, you know a lot of stuff, right? And you could make a ton of recommendations for liver with your nutrition and your herbs and your lifestyle recommendations, but you might not know where to start. So how do you sort it all out? Because, you know, your intake form is likely not going to help you too much. It's probably asking so many questions that are totally irrelevant that it's just going to muddy the process for you. And you need to know how to figure out what the root is. The second challenge that you might be facing is, because you're a holistic practitioner, you're probably a giver. You do a lot of research and program development for your clients outside of your client-paid time, and that's time then that you're not getting paid for. You do that because you want to give each client an individualized, custom-built program, and they do deserve that. They absolutely do. And you feel that the more you give, the better value you're giving, and the more your clients will value it. And you've spent all of this extra time doing all of this work, but you didn't get paid for it. Does that sound like you? You know, I used to do that all the time. I'd get a client in, I'd charge them for an hour, 4 hours later we were still in the session. I would spend hours writing fancy reports and giving them copies of things, and that would backfire on me, just like it maybe backfires on you, because it meant that I would overwhelm them with so much information that, and I would cover every possibility because I didn't know where to begin and I didn't know where to take it. I could only see the big picture. I couldn't figure out a starting point. And what it meant is that they were so overwhelmed that they didn't come back after their second consultation, if they even came back for their second consultation. And so the other thing that sometimes would happen is they would feel overwhelmed, they knew they couldn't do it all, so why bother going back? Or they would feel like they got the 1 or 2 pieces of information they needed, and so they wouldn't come back. Now that 1 or 2 pieces would take them to the next level, but then they would stop there. They didn't realize that there was so much more we could do that if I'd only done my job right, would have taken them to the next level and the next level and the next level. So if any of this sounds familiar, maybe a little like I've been watching you, I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to show you how to correct all of these problems in one fell swoop using dynamic iridology. Now, who am I? And what qualifies me to share this practice-changing information with you? We're going to do some serious iridology today. I am Judith Cobb, and I've been a holistic health coach since 1981, master herbalist since 1983, nutritional consulting practitioner since 94, and using the credentials that got me that, I've added a lot of other affiliations. I've been an iridology instructor since 1990, but in 2016, I decided to affiliate with IPA, the International Iridology Practitioners Association, and certified with them to become a certified comprehensive iridology instructor. Sorry, that train just derailed for just a moment there. A teacher of wellness professionals since 1985, and a wife of 1, a mom of 7, and a grandma of 7. And just to let you know, we'll address questions at the end of the webinar. And so if you have questions, feel free to type them into the question box. And at the end of the thing, after we've addressed those, if there's any that you still have, I will certainly open the lines and we'll take audible questions as well. Okay, and so hopefully that will work for you. Another thing you need to know is that having been in practice for so many years, over 35 years now, I've made every mistake a holistic practitioner can make in a wellness practice. And I've done it while being a wife and a mom. I've invested a lot of time and a lot of money, and a lot of them making mistakes, which actually translates into learning how not to build a business. And I've invested some of it really wisely in classes and workshops with mentors who could lead me through the landmines of building a holistic wellness business. And because of that, being a mentor to holistic practitioners is something I really love doing. Now let's dive in. Let's get into what you really came for, okay? Let's pretend for a moment that you've got a client coming to see you for the very first time. She's complaining of just never feeling quite right. Her energy's been saggy, she feels easily overwhelmed, and she thinks she might be a little depressed. I'm going to ask for you to be interactive here. In your chat box, I want you to type in, what questions would you start with? You've already got her name, her age, her height, her weight, and she's given you those things, that her energy's not right, she's kind of saggy, she feels overwhelmed, she's a little depressed. What questions are you going to ask? Now, we're a small group here today, and that means each of you's got to participate. So hopefully you will. I'm inviting you to. And let's see where we end up here. Just going to make it so I can see your questions. There we go. What did you eat yesterday and today? Great questions. Good job, Martha. Other questions. What else would you ask her? Are you fatigued? Absolutely. Absolutely. And Angie, I suspect since you raised your hand, you might not have, no, you've got a microphone. Can you type your answer in for me, Angie? Can you do lightning fingers? Or you might be on a device where you can't do that, like a tablet. Oh, there you go. There you go. Good job. Good job. How long has this been going on? And Angie says she just figured it out. Good job, Angie. That's great. Yeah, technology, right, at its best. Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great questions. And as you ask those questions and your client gives you answers, you're beginning to sort through using your information. Is this thyroid? Because it could be. All of those could be thyroid. Is this liver? Could be. Is this adrenals? Could be. Is this intestinal? Could be, because we know that our gut is our second brain. Is this blood sugars? Could be. But how do you know where to start? If you look in her eyes, you'll get a lot of clues as to where you need to begin. Now, I'm just going to ask you to raise your hands on this. How many of you have actually been to an iridologist before? Or how many, let's start with that. How many of you have been to an iridologist? Okay. Excellent. Thank you. How many of you actually have some iridology training already? Excellent. Okay, so you've been to an iridologist. He or she may have looked at your eyes with a camera like this, and you're coming to a class like this to learn a bit about iridology. And you're thinking, I can't do iridology. I can't afford a $3,000 camera like that. There's no way I can do that. But the good news is you don't need that kind of a setup. That's not where any of us started. This is where we all started. We all started with handheld equipment. So if you're just beginning and you don't have a camera, that's perfectly fine. I like to have a 5x magnifier, a 10x magnifier, a really good pen light that has a really white light, and a lighted magnifier. The reason I like to have that much equipment is each one of those gives me different advantages. And the beauty of that is you can get started for under $75. And that's just really a great thing. Now, additionally, if you want to do it even less expensively than that, if maybe you're on a budget or you're like me and you're just looking for a good deal, go to Amazon and Google lighted magnifier, and you will probably find on there a lighted magnifier that actually has 3 interchangeable lenses. And it's got a 3x, a 5x, and a 10x. Get that, and then get yourself a really good pen light, because you can use the lighted magnifier without the built-in light. That gives you everything you need, and you can start doing iridology for probably under $50. Now, with that equipment, you're going to look in your client's eyes, and what are you going to find? You might find brown pigment. You might find melanin deposits, especially where they don't belong. You might find Ferrum chromatose. You might find Lipemic Diathesis. You might find pinguecula. And you're saying, what the heck are those? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover today. You're going to learn those 5 iris signs today. So really, do go to Amazon or go to your local Walmart or whatever, Target if you're in the States, and get that basic equipment, because you're going to want to start using these. And this is why you're going to want to use those, because when you understand those things about the liver, you can start integrating all of your nutrition knowledge. You know probably what foods are liver supportive and what foods are a little bit hard on the liver. You can integrate your herbal knowledge. Again, if you've got that herbal training, you know which herbs are better for the liver. And you know what kinds of things they do. You can integrate your lifestyle knowledge. You've all had at least a few years of experience on this planet, and you know things that can help your client. You can get rid of lengthy intake forms. I spoke with one practitioner's intake form is 20 pages long. I don't know any client that would be excited about filling that out, and I don't know any practitioner that's excited about reading it. You can prioritize which pieces of education and homework to share with your clients today, the next session, and the session after that, as you help your clients craft their health. And so we avoid a lot of problems, because you're breaking it down into doable, bite-sized pieces of homework for your clients in your client sessions, so your clients are no longer overwhelmed. You give them a few pieces that they can work on. You'll stop spending hours of your own time unpaid putting reports together for your clients. That either frees up time to do other things, spend time with family, on hobbies, or it opens time in your appointment book for you to see and help more people. And it helps you to look incredibly smart, even if you feel insecure, as you ask client-specific questions and create programs right in your sessions. This is so important, because this alone makes it so you don't have to spend a lot of time overproducing and overcompensating for what you perceive to be your insecurities. Let's look at a brown eye. Let's look at eyes now. This eye, it has brown pigment in it. Now, brown pigment, we're going to see a lot of these, comes in a lot of different configurations. And an eye can range from being true brown, where we see none of the fiber structure. So we're going to see what fiber structure means in a minute, but this is not fiber structure. This is something entirely different. And your eyes can then range down to a hazel, sometimes called a light brown. Do you see how you can see threads in this? This is fiber structure. Okay, so let's pop back. No fiber visible. Yes, fiber visible. Still a brown eye. Still a brownish eye, but it has the pigment in it. And so we're looking for brown. We're going to talk a lot about brown today. And so as long as we've got brown in here, it totally counts. It can even be a light hazel eye, where we've got sort of a dirty orange brown, or a little patch of brown. Any brown counts. Sometimes we'll see, and this has nothing to do with liver, it's just a side note, sometimes you'll see the fiber radiates out fairly nicely, but sometimes you'll see it does interesting things, and that teaches us about different things going on in the body that the body is genetically programmed to do. We'll learn about those perhaps in a future webinar. We certainly teach that in the iridology class. And again, we can have just these rust-colored or brown-colored pigments in the eye. Whenever you see rust or brown in an eye, you need to ask liver questions. So whether it's an eye that's completely brown, like the very first picture we saw, or a little bit brown like the next couple of pictures, or just brown spotty like this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much brown or rust color you see. Those colors are always going to trigger you to ask liver questions. Now, what are those liver questions? You'll want to write these down. I promise I'll go slow enough here that you can catch them all. When you see any rust color or brown in an eye, you want to ask, are there any gallbladder issues, personally or in the family? Now, again, we're not going to delve into gallbladder today, but it's a question you would ask. You want to ask, is there a problem digesting fats? Now, this one you need to be kind of sneaky with, because you can say, do you have problems digesting fats? And the person says no. And you're thinking, okay, with everything else this client has maybe told me, that doesn't make sense. So then you're going to ask, do you avoid eating fatty foods? Oh yeah, all the time, because it really upsets my stomach. So do you see the difference? They will, if they're avoiding eating fatty foods, they're not going to now, and they've done it for a while, they're not going to say that they have problem digesting fats. So you need to dig deeper. You need to word the question differently in order to get them to give you the information you need. Another way of asking that is, are there any foods that would cause digestive problems if you were to eat them, or when you do eat them? And then they start thinking about those different pathways. Ask the person if they have a problem with their iron stores, either too much or too little, and that might manifest as something like anemia or ferrum chromatose. Hemochromatosis. We'll talk about those a bit more later. Do you have problems with your immune response? Are you getting sick all the time? Do you have feelings of general malaise? You just always feel a little yucky, a little under the weather, and the doctor says everything is fine. There are no problems. It's all in your head. Are you prone to migraine headaches? Specifically migraines more than other kinds. Do you have allergies? And it doesn't matter if they're seasonal. It doesn't matter if they've had them since they were a child. I also want to know if they've got allergies that they think they've quote unquote outgrown. Because allergies don't disappear, they change, they mutate. Do you have wounds that are slow to heal? Again, we talked about that a bit earlier on. And does food taste bitter or metallic? And also with women, ask the PMS hormone issues. So these are questions that you need to ask and you need answers to when you see brown or rust colors in the liver, because most of your clients will not associate these with liver issues or liver weaknesses or liver challenges or a congested liver. They will see these as migraines are a head problem, allergies are a sinus problem, and immune response is an immune system problem, but they're not liver, when in reality they probably are liver. So whenever you see brown, whether it's an entirely brown eye or some rust color in an eye, you want to be thinking about liver. Oops, I did have that one on there. Who knew? Melanin. Now this is an interesting one because the pigment that makes a brown eye brown is called melanin. And so a brown eye has so much melanin in it that it completely hides all of the fibers in the eye. So when you look at this eye and you think, oh, but that's a fiber and that's a fiber, those are not fibers. Those are actually gaps between fibers. And there's a difference. Okay, so that's a gap between a fiber. It has a special name that we'll cover maybe in another iridology workshop, but definitely in the class. So when we have a person with a dark brown eye, sometimes there is so much pigment, so much melanin, that it spills off into the white of the eye. And if it stays close to the iris in the brown-eyed person, that's perfectly okay. That is not a problem. Now I want you to note this patch because we're going to go to some different shots of this eye. When we have this person look really sideways, so we see this patch of melanin here, we also see they have a patch of melanin here. And this patch of melanin is quite a distance away from the iris. Same eye, looking the other direction, we see a patch of melanin here, and surrounding this capillary bed we see more melanin. When we have melanin that far away from the iris, it's an absolute clue that the liver is not happy. Even if we saw no other indicators of liver in this iris, we would absolutely be asking the liver questions here. On first glance, this looks like a perfectly lovely blue eye, and indeed it is a perfectly lovely blue eye. There's nothing in this front-on photo that makes me think, I should ask him about his liver. But, again, I want you to notice this blood vessel, and this blood vessel, so that as we go to this picture, we see that first blood vessel, the second blood vessel, and the third blood vessel. And what we also see is an early accumulation of melanin. Now this is a sign that acquires, it builds. So if we had pictures of this person who happens to be about 21 or 22 years old, if we had these kinds of photos of his eyes from when he was 6 years old, we probably wouldn't see it there. When we had pictures of these from him when he was 12 or 15, we might be beginning to see it. So this is an accumulated sign. It's like when you look at a newborn baby that has dark brown eyes. So for example, maybe a baby that is Chinese or Filipino or something like that, they're not going to have the melanin spilled into the whites of their eyes. That develops over time. So remember that his eyes were blue. We've got this melanin way, way back here. And so it suggests that we're going to have a liver issue. Now, a blue eye actually has the melanin pigment in it as well. But when that melanin pigment is so sparse, the iris looks blue. When it's really heavy, the iris looks brown. So this eye has melanin in it. We just can't see it until we get him to look sideways, and then we see it. So this is a definite reason to be asking questions. Now I've got more indicators I want to share with you today, and so we're going to get to them in just a moment. I just wanted to start with letting you know that the iridology class, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, is going to be starting again on October 5th. It's an online class just like we're doing right now, and it actually will go for 20 sessions and it will end mid-March. Registration is opening today, and this is the registration link. So we're going to give you more details about this as we go, but you'll want to bookmark that link because there's something special about it for today and tomorrow. The next sign we want to look at is called Ferrum chromatose. This is only in brown eyes and dark hazel eyes. You will never see ferrum chromatose in a blue eye or in a very light brown eye. When we see ferrum chromatose, what we are looking for is this stripy appearance. Can you see how we've got some dark brown stripes happening in here? When we see that, that is the dead giveaway that we are working with ferrum chromatose. Now, for those of you who are nutritionists and herbalists, this can be a really important sign. This is a genetic indicator. It is not acquired. The eye, when a newborn is born, when a baby is born, their pupils, or their eyes, sorry, are typically all kind of dark. And over the first few months, they start to fade. And by the time they're about 6 months old, you can see their eye color. But the iris does continue to develop genetically until about the age of 6. So you often won't see this full on until the child is about 6 years old, and then it's pretty much set. This specific radiating marker of the brown stripes is an indication that the body has a potential to have an imbalance in the iron assimilation in the body. And it can either be a problem assimilating it where they don't get enough. There may be enough iron in the diet, but the body doesn't absorb it well. Or it could be that they absorb too much of it and can't get rid of it, as would happen in something like hemochromatosis. So in either case, as we look at these eyes and we see this tiger striping or this ferrum chromatose, we don't know which way this is going to go, whether they are more prone to chronic anemia or whether they are more prone to the hemochromatosis. In a child, you're going to have problems necessarily determining that, and even lab tests may not show it up. Often in an adult, you'll actually see the physical symptoms in a male sort of around the age of 40, and they'll often complain about joint pain, weight loss, feeling cold all the time, not enough energy, or stomach pain. Those will be common symptoms that will go with this, but they will go even more with the hemochromatosis. So particularly the joint pain, the weight loss, and the stomach pain, hemochromatosis leans you towards the idea that they store too much iron and they don't get rid of it. And iron becomes toxic when you've got too much. Women don't show those symptoms because they're having menstrual periods that help them to shed the excess iron. Women will not show symptoms usually of hemochromatosis until after menopause. That's when they will complain of the joint pain, the weight loss, and the stomach pain. Okay. Sometimes, again, with the ferrum chromatose, what you will see is the anemia side, and that, of course, is more along the lines of the not enough energy, feeling cold all the time. So more the anemic side. Right, so we've got the two sides that ferrum chromatose can tell us, anemia or hemochromatosis. Both cases are an inappropriate iron assimilation, and the hemochromatosis really probably needs medical attention as well, or at least medical monitoring. Here we have another one that has ferrum chromatose. We can see a little less of the tiger striping in the eye, but we do have it in here. And so we're going to ask all of those liver questions. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about all of the jobs that the liver does, and the hemoglobin is an excellent example of how important the liver is. Hemoglobin is considered to be a tertiary protein. Actually, that's wrong. I've got my notes wrong. It's a quaternary protein. My apologies. It's a quaternary protein. And what that means is proteins can be as simple as a couple of amino acids in a line. That would be a primary. A secondary would be a slightly longer string of amino acids that has a fold in it. So it's still a simple structure. A tertiary is a longer chain of proteins that has a couple of little folds. So it's a little more complex. A quaternary protein is a long chain of amino acids forming a protein that gets all tied up in a knot. And that's what your hemoglobin is. So in each hemoglobin, you actually have 4 protein heme structures. and each heme structure can carry 1 molecule of iron. Can you see how tightly linked this is to liver function? Right? If your liver is not doing its job properly of taking these strings of amino acids and knotting them up in this ball that looks like a piece of yarn that a cat played with and tied it into knots, and then if the iron isn't taking the iron and storing it properly, and then pulling it out of storage to drop it into the heme iron, we've got a problem. So whenever we see anything related to hemoglobin, whether we've got the Ferrum chromatose or not, we want to be asking liver questions. So how is this going to work with you? What are you going to learn as you learn iridology? You're going to learn how to do a base assessment in 5 minutes or less without lengthy intake paperwork. And I'll give you a little example of that on one of the slides that we'll look at today. You'll learn how to ask only the questions that are relevant to your client's needs. So important. You'll learn how to create programs right in your sessions and eliminate unpaid homework time. We've touched on that a time or two. You'll learn how to connect what you know about nutrition and herbology with what you discover using dynamic iridology. You'll learn how to prioritize the problems your client needs help with. And you'll learn how to do a deeper assessment for more direction and understanding of your client's needs when that is needed. Here's what a few of my clients, my students have said. So, in case you're wondering, is this course going to be worth taking? This is Michelle Davies. Now, she came to me, she's just getting into her exam phase right now, but she came to me already being a certified iridologist with a different organization, having done several different iridology courses. She has her certified nutritional practitioner. She's a registered nutritional consulting practitioner. She's got herbology under her belt and nutrition. She is a well-trained lady. This is what she said. This is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Holy doodle. Judith's course is top on my list. Judith is very enthusiastic and excited as we are in the course. She has many good examples and stories to share that make the course so much more real in today's world. Judith's iridology course is very informative, descriptive, and complete, as it contains the most accurate iridology, including sclerology, and most importantly, how to put it all together and how to make a proper assessment. We practice that a lot in our class. I feel most confident in my nutritional practice right now. That is one of the things that nutritionists say when they come in, is they're feeling like they don't know where to start. They don't know how to put a program together, because in their training, they were taught how to do these massive reports. They were never taught how to sequence the information, how to prioritize it, how to choose a starting point, and where to go next session and next session and next session. So with the iridology course, I teach you how to do that. Ooh, let's do another iris sign. Yes, please. Lipemic diathesis. The lipemic diathesis is similar to pigment in the sclera in that it shows up over time. It can have a genetic base, but not always. Sometimes you just earned this yourself. The lipemic diathesis is this milky white film around the edge of the iris. And this person has it superior and inferior in the eye. I believe we have the beginning of it here as well. I think this will actually go all the way around in about 10 years. Now, this is interesting because this client is about 45 years old, and she's already showing this. Now, I'm going to show you in a moment why this is important. But first, let's look at some anatomy. The cornea is right here, and it is a clear layer in front of the pupil and in front, so this is the pupil right here, and in front of the iris. So when we see this accumulating, it is actually in the cornea. It's not in the iris itself. The cornea continues and connects with the sclera, which is white. The sclera continues all the way around and is continuous with the dura mater, which is one of the brain layers, one of the layers that protects the brain, and this dura mater protects the optic nerve. So when we see lipemic diathesis, we know that what's happening here is that the cornea is absorbing fats from the bloodstream. Now, it's absorbing fats that are believed to be the kinds of fats that sediment in the arteries and block arteries. And so often, but not always, there's a correlation between cholesterol getting out of balance and seeing the lipemic diathesis. Now, the cornea is very stingy. Once it has absorbed these fats, it's never going to give them back. It's not going to release them. They're always going to be there as a reminder that you are at risk. And again, sometimes, but not always, we see elevated cholesterol. Cholesterol goes out of balance because the liver enzymes are out of balance. The blood fats go out of balance because the liver enzymes are out of balance. So when we see this, our first thing to think about is what's going on in the liver. Now just look at this eye a little bit more with me, because not only do we have the lipemic diathesis, but we have brown in here, and we have a little patch of dark brown right here, a little one here, and some very, very dark brown up here in the pupil, or sorry, in the iris behind the cornea. So underneath that corneal layer. So just from these straight on photos, we've got a couple of indicators that say, got to ask those questions about the liver and about cholesterol and about triglycerides. Now again, this woman is 45. That could be an issue. This is a 12-year-old boy. When you look very, very closely, you can see the beginning of the lipemic diathesis here. It is beginning to accumulate. When we see this marker under the age of 40, it is a very serious thing. We need to really focus on what is going on here. What's going on in this person's liver, what's going on with their blood fats, what is the family history. Because we don't usually see this until after 40, and we often don't see it until after 60. I would ask this boy and his mother to keep a food journal for a full week, and I would ask the mother to gather health history on herself and her husband, other children in the family, parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. I would want to have 3 generations back from this child if I could get it, because I want to know how much of this is dietary and how much of this might be genetic. Dietary stuff we can totally work with. Genetic stuff we can certainly work on, but it will be longer and harder to do. Here's another lipemic diathesis, again, a very early indicator. You can see the white film starting here. And even when we look at the edge of the eye down here, you can see that it looks like we're looking through fog. This is a 24-year-old man. And again, he's way too young for us to see this. We should not be seeing this in someone his age. Because we can see it, we need to ask questions about a lot of things. Now, he's a total non-drinker, so we know he hasn't been messing up his liver with alcohol, but he eats a lot of deep-fried food. He has a very high carbohydrate diet, and he doesn't eat much that's really healthy. Like if he eats 1 small serving of vegetables a day, that is a red letter day. He just doesn't eat a lot that's good. And so we need to ask questions, and we can't tell from looking whether this is from the lousy diet or whether it's from a liver enzyme imbalance. And it probably doesn't really matter. I will want some lab tests. I'll send him to his doctor for lab tests, but I'm still going to do dietary correction because his diet needs it, and I'm still going to do liver support because we had better do that. He's not been kind to his liver at all. This is a woman in her early 50s, and you can see again she has the lipemic diathesis. Now she's a naturopath and she takes pretty good care of herself. She's got some brown overtones in her eyes that tells us she's a little predisposed to liver issues. And she's got some brown pigments, so that again underscores that predisposition towards liver issues. When she had her blood tested, her blood lipids were totally within the normal ranges, according to the doctors. We want to monitor this, and we also want to be working on liver support. She is pretty good with her foods, and because she's a naturopath, she knows a lot of what to do. But even practitioners sometimes need someone to guide them and to tell them what they need to change. And so that's what we work on with her, is that fine-tuning guidance that she may not be aware of doing or may not be thinking of. With someone like this, well, with all of these, because this is an acquired sign, I would monitor their eyes about every 6 months to a year. I want to see how things are developing and how things are changing. This is such a gift. It really is. I mean, you see this in someone's eyes and you say, we need to watch your liver. We need to do some diet work. You redo the photos 6 months or 12 months down the road. How have things changed? And keep that pattern up to see, are we doing things that are holding this and keeping it from developing, or is something continuing to develop? And if some of these changeable signs continue to develop, we know we need to work harder. Really, if you knew your body was trying to block arteries, but you had no symptoms of it yet, wouldn't you start making every effort to reverse the situation? That's what iridology gives us the opportunity to do. Some things are genetically set and we won't see them change. Some things are acquired and we can see them change. And that's what we want to do. I don't have any clients who want to have a stroke or a pulmonary embolism or a heart attack. So when I see markers in their eyes, I can teach them about it, we can monitor it, and we can hopefully prevent it. And I can send them to their doctors to get more medical testing. When we see a lipemic diathesis in an 80-year-old for whom we don't have previous eye photos like this gentleman, we can certainly ask the questions about family and personal cholesterol issues, vascular health, liver health, but this sign can also just simply be natural aging of the cornea. And so if you see a lipemic diathesis in someone who's over 60 years old, it may be less significant if you can ascertain that it started to develop after the age of 60. Ask the questions regardless of the age and see where it takes you. Now with this person, because I don't have eye pictures of him that are older than that, and he is, actually I think he's about 83 or 84, what I do see here is lots of thick red blood vessels. That tells me stuff about congestion in his circulatory system. I see this one that is hugging the edge of his iris. That tells me more, not just about circulation, but about the organs that are reflected in this part of the iris, as does this. So we've got things over here. And I see that along here we have bits where it actually looks like there's a little bubble or a little tiny expansion right in the vein, kind of like a rubber tube that has a weak spot and it's swollen up and it's filled with water in that place. So we see a lot of indicators here that point us in other directions for his health. We'll pause on him for a moment because we look at his stomach region, which is not the strongest in town. It suggests that he's never had really good hydrochloric acid. We look at the orange in his eyes, which suggests he may have a predisposition towards blood sugar imbalances. Now, I happen to know that he eats really well, and he does little challenges with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren where if they will abstain from all refined sugar, and he'll give them a list, no pop, no candy, no cookies, no chocolate bars, no cake, nothing like that. For a month, he'll buy them out. He'll pay them $50 or $100. So he actually has a pretty decent diet, and he may have done enough to thwart this from ever becoming an issue for him. He has tendency to being a little bit over acid. But again, because he actually often will do a completely sprouted foods diet. I've been in his kitchen and I've seen all the jars lined up based on when he started them and how long they need to grow for. And he will often do a month or 6 or 8 weeks of only sprouted foods. And it's like, oh my goodness, that takes such focus. But I also know that he's recently been, in the last 5 years, in 3 significant car accidents, all of which had head impacts. And I would have liked to have had eye photos of him from before then, because I wonder how much of this, and potentially how much of what we see hanging off the edge of the eye here, is actually an accumulation from those car accidents. So what's included in this iridology class I've been talking about? It's called the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. 20 sessions as live webinars, approximately 40 hours plus. And each class is recorded in its entirety and posted to your student site so you can review it as you feel the need. And we cover a lot in each class, so going back and reviewing is a great idea. All of the content is also edited into short topic videos. So if we cover 8 or 10 topics in one 2-hour session, there's also a bank of videos where it's 1 video per topic. So just clean and neat, just that topic. If there's only one piece you need to review, get in there and get it reviewed. And so you have access to all of this for 18 months. The beauty of doing it over 20 weeks as live webinars is you don't have any travel expenses. That's important, right? Because travel can be pricey. You also have time to practice between classes to make sure you know what you're doing and bring your questions back to class. You get a lot of access to me because I'm teaching all those 40 hours. Plus, we have some other ways for you to have access to me between classes and afterwards as well. You get a digital textbook that's made available in weekly installments. So I take each week's content and post it just a day or two before class because I know some of you are keeners and you'd want to read the whole textbook, try to get it all into your brain, and that's perfectly fine. I would rather, however, that you focused on one section, got it really well under your belt before you added more. Each class starts with a review of the previous week, a time for you to ask questions, a time for you to make sure things are really clear, and each class has lots of in-class practice and interaction. We unblock the phone lines, we get lots of dialogue going, questions, answers, cases, things to discuss, side tangent topics. We have a great time. You get a certificate of attendance for attending 80% of the classes, and certification is optional. IPA certification is a 5-step process, and it is totally optional. Step 1 is attend the classes. Step 2 is provide a transcript to IPA with a grade on it, proving successful completion of anatomy and physiology. Step 3, once those 2 are done, is complete a 10 iris analysis, set of 10 iris analyses, which I provide to you. You give them back to me. I evaluate them. We decide, are you ready to move on in the exam process, or do you need a little more time on some topics? Step 4 is you complete 1 iris case study, which I provide to you. Provides it via me. Again, it comes back to me for evaluation, and that grade gets submitted to IPA. Step 6 is you apply to IPA for the written test, which costs $175 US, and it's payable to IPA. It consists of 7 sections in the test: multiple choice, fill in the blanks, matching, labeling diagrams, drawing diagrams, and you must get, you don't want to bet 80%, you got to get 80% on each section to complete certification. If you didn't quite make, maybe got 80% on 6 sections and there's 1 more you need to do, you can redo that 1 section. Okay, let's talk about that 18-month thing. On the previous slide, I said you'd have access to the content for 18 months. And you might be going, hey, wait a minute. And here's why we do 18 months. Because I know if you use iridology in practice, you will come up with questions about particular cases you're working on way after that 18-month window. And so you'll have unlimited access from the start of your class until I retire to the private Facebook page. It's a Facebook page only for my students and alumni. You post questions, comments. If you've got an iCamera, you can post photos, and we can discuss those. We also have once a month a live Q&A webinar where you can again submit questions and we discuss them. That gets recorded and posted to a Q&A site. And so you get access to those things, the Facebook page and the Q&As, until I retire. And I'm telling you, I'm not planning on retiring for a long time. I love teaching. I love doing what I'm doing, and I'm not going to give this up tomorrow, that's for sure. So the Q&A page and the Facebook page are the best ways for you to have ongoing support, to be a part of a holistic iridology community, and to support other up-and-coming iridologists beyond your class time. That's why you only have access to things for 18 months on the website. As new discoveries are made, I will be holding special little webinars, special advanced classes. We'll post different things to the website to make sure you are kept completely up to date. Here's a testimonial from Karen. She has just recently completed the Confident Nutrition program with me, and she goes on, I can honestly say this is one of the most rewarding, informational, and fun classes I've ever had. Judith is a born teacher. She's extremely patient and kind. She keeps things light with a bit of humor, but above all, she's a master at her craft and generously shares her knowledge. Judith is committed to the success of her students. I feel very blessed and fortunate to have had such an amazing teacher. Golly, you know, I just feel like this is just almost over the top, and I so appreciate it, and to have been a part of her class. I've already implemented several techniques and applied extremely crucial and beneficial knowledge and skills that I learned in this class to my own practice with great success. Thanks to Judith, I'm definitely a much more confident nutritionist. Now, Karen came into me with already having her CNHP designation, right? And so she also had a ton of training under her belt. And for her to say such kind things and honest things, it's great. We are still in contact on the Facebook page, as I am with all of my students, and it's wonderful to see them progress. Here's another iris sign. It's called a pinguecula. It's this fatty blob here. You know, and you have that now and you say, can't you feel that? No, they can't. It's really bizarre. But it develops so slowly and gradually over time. This is an acquired sign that they don't even notice it's there. Now, pinguecula, it's just a fun word, right? I love saying that word, pinguecula. Okay, get a life. This is always clear or yellow, and it always suggests a fat metabolism problem and or liver challenges. So whenever you see a pinguecula, you want to ask those questions. So I want you to see this one in this one person from different points of view. So from the front, it looks like this. And you can see that blood vessel that goes behind it. Here you can see it again. This is developing. This one isn't really thick yet. It's pretty flat. So we've got the pinguecula, but notice also how much other liver pigmentation colors are in the eye. So we know we want to be asking those liver questions here again. All of them. All of them. Find out what's going on with this person. Here's something you don't see very often, and that is this person has two pinguecula in the very early stages of developing, both in the same eye. Now again, notice she's got dark brown pigments. She's got some pigment that's forming some stripes. This is not true ferrum chromatose because this is not a light brown or true brown eye. This is a blue eye with other stuff on top. But when we see any of this brown pigment in here, we're going to ask liver questions. And when we see pinguecula, we are going to ask liver questions. And here's another pinguecula that's in the very early stages. Looking at eyes is not a once and done thing because some of these things do develop over time We want to be monitoring eyes carefully and repeatedly every 6 to 12 months, either keeping really, really good notes or eventually getting some iridology equipment. Now you want to be careful to not confuse a pinguecula with a pterygium. Although a pterygium can also indicate liver, this is an iris or a sclera sign that is the result of too much UV light exposure, too much exposure to wind and dust. It's often called surfer's eye or farmer's eye. And it really is a kind of a scar tissue on the surface of the eye that is loaded with capillaries. You can see all of these capillaries streaking through this. This grows and develops. It starts in the sclera and gradually will almost always begin to cover the iris and can get to where it covers the pupil and will then need to be surgically excised. When you see a pterygium that is yellow, you need to ask liver questions. So when you are doing the iridology class, what will you learn specifically? And this is a huge list, and it's not going to make a lot of sense right yet. 3 constitutional iris types, 6 constitutional subtypes, 7 zones of the iris, 4 physical integrity subtypes, 14 specific lacuna types. Now, what the heck's a lacuna? I'll show you one in a minute. We'll flip back and I'll show you one. 7 special consideration fiber types and placements. 4 syndrome markings. 7 types of contraction furrows. Oh my goodness, right? 12 sclera markings. And how to map markings to understand their individual and connected meanings. Let's just pop back. Yeah, we'll have to roll back through that to here, for instance. So looking at this eye, its constitutional type is its lymphatic. It has a central heterochromia with liver pigments. We have a shoe lacuna here, which tells us about the organ reaction field it's sitting in, but also tells us about another organ. We have a torpedo lacuna here, which is telling us that we are probably looking at some lung issues with this person. We have contraction furrows here, which tell us this person spends a lot of time in the sympathetic mode, which then tells us we are going to have to work on the nervous system and the digestive system. We see in the digestive zone that this person has a bit of a challenge creating hydrochloric acid and assimilating nutrients, particularly proteins. And we have a lot of orange color in the eye that suggests pancreas could be an issue. When we add to it that we've got pinguecula, we have more liver concerns. That is a basic iris analysis. When you know what each of those things mean, you've got a complete picture. You can dig deeper, but you don't need to. And so we have just basically gone through as many of these things as you needed to know to analyze that last iris. So what's the tuition for the course? It is $19.95 Canadian. Now, if you're in the States, that right now is translating to about $16.25. But I really believe in early bird, fast action discounts. I believe if you're ready to move and you know you want the class, that you deserve a discount. So until Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, the tuition will be $17.95. You go to iridology.education /5-October-2017, and it will automatically process your order at this price, your registration. Now, some of you are going, yeah, I really want to do the class. I just don't have $17.95 sitting in my hip pocket. Do you have a payment plan? Of course I do. The payment plan is 4 payments of $549, but there is a fast action option which drops it down to 4 payments of $499. It is unheard of for a payment plan to actually be the same price as the regular price on a course. People just don't do that. The payment plan is always more expensive than the regular price, no matter what your other discounts are. So again, if you if you want to do that, you go to this page, scroll all the way down to the very bottom of this page, and you'll see in tiny print, I'd rather a 4-pay plan. Click on that and it will take you in. Now you're getting the feel from this that things are pretty intimate with this program. The registration program is pretty intimate too. I do not have everything fully automated. So once you get in and pay, and it's all through PayPal, and if you're not comfortable with PayPal, you can phone me a credit card information and tell me whether you want the 1-pay or the 4-pay, either or. Within 1 business day, I will get back to you by email with a form to fill out to send in to me and some other details. It's not fully automated, right? I'm going to have personal contact with you through the registration process because it is just me. And so if there's any other questions you need to ask as you're doing the registration process, we can absolutely help you with that, and I would be happy to. So, do you have any other questions for me about registering, about the course, about what it covers, about how it's delivered? Because I would love to see all of you in this course. Whether you are a holistic professional or not, maybe you're doing courses now and working towards certification in them, or maybe you are just super interested in health. Either or, this program will give you so much to help your own family, to help you in your practice. It specifically is designed to be totally useful right out of the starting block. And you will find that as soon as we start looking at eyes, which is in our 2nd lesson, you will be able to start applying that with people around you, and you should. That's another benefit to doing a 20-week class. And I have nothing against the teachers who teach this as a 5- or 6-day seminar. More power to them. I know I've done intensive things that were 5 and 6 days long, and by the time I get to lunchtime on day 2, I can't absorb anymore. By doing it over 20 weeks, you've got time to learn it and time to apply it. So again, just a reminder that these discounts, these fast action discounts, are only good until 8 p.m. on Friday, September 8th. Don't leave it till the last minute. That again is a manual thing. I go in and I physically take those down. I know where they are. I take them down. Everything goes up to the regular price, and there's no exceptions. There will not be promotions offered again like this before the class starts on October 5th. So I haven't seen, I don't think, let me just get in there and double check. I don't think I've seen any new questions come in. Oh, what did I just do? I just got rid of my question panel. That wasn't a smart thing to do. Let me get in here and get my questions back to see if there's any others. Okay. Right back to the start. Okay, here we go. Martha says, many thanks, Judith. I have a client come in a few minutes. This information will be put to use. Friends, you should take advantage of this. Judith is an exceptional and outstanding instructor, as you can all see. Martha has been a groupie. She's done a lot of my classes. She knows what she's talking about. Peggy says, Judith, is it common to be just an iridologist, or should the person be a health practitioner? Oh, great question, Peggy. My experience is that iridology does not stand well alone. You do the assessment, you tell people where the weak links are, and you need to be able to give them information about what they can do with it. So you need to be either a nutritionist or a herbalist or something, or have that kind of training in order for this to be really useful. And that's one of the reasons why, as I'm going through, I draw on that information. So when we look at liver signs, we talk about what are the nutritional things. So if you've got nutrition under your belt, you can draw on that. We talk about what are the herbal things, what are the lifestyle things. So it's a really powerful place to come from. And so I do encourage you to have or be getting some of the other training as well. And that's another reason why I like to spin this out over 20 weeks. I have people who are in their nutrition program, and for them to do a 5 or 6 intensive day course is not doable, but to do 2 hours over 20 weeks, they can do that. Angie says, thank you so much. Very good. Saving up for it. Oh, Angie, I can hardly wait till you're in the class because, wow, I've met Angie online as well, and I know that she's got some good training under her belt. We've had some conversations, and she'll be fabulous, as will all of you. I look at the names here. I recognize all these names. I feel like I'm teaching to all of my good friends here, which is just way too much fun. And so I encourage you, if it's at all possible, to save up. And remember that if you're in the U.S., these prices are about 20% lower because the exchange rate, your dollar, is stronger than ours. And so, again, with that, I'm going to say goodbye. We've spent our time. I hope you feel you've spent your time well. If you've got friends who are interested and they would like to attend the evening session, we're repeating this at 6 o'clock. Please send me a quick email, and I'll gladly send you the registration link again if you don't have it anymore, and we'll get them into the evening class. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for spending your hour and a quarter with me today. I so appreciate it. And I look forward to having you in class along the way, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.